My aunt, at 16 years old in Chicago, was nothing but trouble. She was with thugs, she got into gangs, she got into fights, and at 16, her mom, my grandma, kicked her out of the house. So the only place she could go, the only person she could go to was to my mom and dad in Tucson, Arizona, where they were, in Tucson, Arizona, where they worked and went to school. And she had trouble finding a job there. She was young and wasn't all bright, and what my mom decided was that she'd take care of me, that my aunt could take care of me. And everyone was cautious about it because my aunt is crazy and because she hates kids. But she couldn't find anything. This was the only option for everyone in the situation, including me. But eventually, every day, my mom and dad would come home to me and my aunt, and those became the good old days. Now, in Chicago, when my family used to get together, there would eventually be a time of the night where everyone would talk about stories, about how the kids in the family used to be idiots. And my aunt would always lead with this one. Around 2 years old, I had already had a routine with my aunt. We were, lock, stock, and two smoking. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And she, was reluctant to it at first, but eventually there came a time where every morning I would sit on her belly and smack her in the face. She was a heavy sleeper. And I would say, "Wake up, Buffet," in my high-pitched 2-year-old voice. And once again, her name is Lisa. Not Boo Fat. I think it's Boo because we played peekaboo, and Fat because she's a heavy woman. But it was cute. So every morning I would do that, and then we'd go to the kitchen where I would ask for things like mashed potatoes, which were mashed potatoes, tatus, which are tacos, hamburgers, which were hamburgers. And to drink would be ghetto juice, which was Kool-Aid. But I didn't just ask for ghetto juice. I had a dance, and it was like ghetto juice, and every day, every morning. And like clockwork, we would go to the bathroom and potty train. As my mom would come out to go to school, me and my aunt would walk in. Except today, on this day, the phone rang. And my aunt went to go get it, and I stayed, and I wanted to speed up the process. I knew the routine. I closed the door and I locked it. I didn't realize at the time that when I closed it and locked it that she wouldn't be with me when I closed it and locked it. So when she came in, she started freaking out, and so did I. I tried to open the door. She yells at me to open the door. It's stuck. It's done. And once again, we have a routine, and at this point, I've been waiting for a little while. It's time to go. It's time to do this. I need to poop. I really do. We do it every morning. And I have yet to reach the point to have the skill to hold it, to do the clench. I can barely do it in the toilet right now. I can't clench. I can't do it. So she's yelling at me to open the door, and I can't. And I'm walking to the, mini porta potty, and I always forget the steps. That's what she says every time. I always forget the steps. I don't know if it's shit and then sit and then wipe, or shit and wipe and then sit, or wipe then shit and then sit. I don't remember. I never remember. But she's always there to help me, and now she isn't, and the pressure is on. So my strategy was to shit and then wipe and then sit, which this is how it happened. I was standing up, I shat, and I tried to wipe it off of me, but to get down to my feet, I had to sit down, but there was already some on the floor, so I'd have to stand up and wipe it off again, but then I'd get on my feet again. It was a never-ending process, and 2 minutes later, my aunt's still outside the door, and I'm crying like a baby. I was a baby. And she brings my mom in, because my mom is still, relatively close, so she brings her in. And my mom is, as being the woman she is, she's like, well, just leave it closed. This kid's an idiot, she thought that I wouldn't open the door, not that I couldn't, so she just let me stay in there as punishment. And my aunt was bawling, because at this point, it had become like a sitcom, where at first we were like back to back, and she's like, this guy always smacks me, and I'm like, this girl never feeds me hamburgers for breakfast. And eventually, at the end of the season, it became like she loved me, and I loved her, and I was in danger, and I was screaming, which made her scream, and I stopped screaming suddenly, and so did she. And her heart drops. And she starts thinking of every possible way that I could have gotten hurt, that I could have hit my head, anything. And then I reach in the crease of the door with my poo-covered hand, and I say, help me, Boo-Fat. Save me, Boo-Fat. That's how the story usually ends. I don't see my family anymore. I don't see that side anymore. And it's been a while. And growing up, my aunt had her own 2 kids, and they're great and they're beautiful, but I always knew, and my mom we always knew growing up that she wasn't the best of parents. And I wondered what the difference was between me and her, because she was nice with me. She was better with me. My aunt was part of a system that was ruthless. She wasn't smart. She couldn't get a job, so she had to sell drugs, so she went to prison, so she couldn't get a good job afterwards. So thinking about it, thinking about my second mother, thinking about my aunt, Lisa, I am appreciative of the mother that I have. I'm glad that she could play Beatles CDs for me as I went to sleep. And unlike my aunt, tell me to shut that shit off or she'll beat the shit out of me. I'm glad that my mom has let me see my father and his family and her family when they betrayed her, when they've stabbed her in the back. Unlike my aunt, who's isolated her kids. I'm glad that my mom and dad didn't have to work 15 hours a day, because my mom is a single mom, but she had help from my dad. My aunt had nothing. I'm glad that I got to hear my family tell stories when they still could, before they all separated and went their ways, before reality set in. Thank you.